Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're talking about a developing WNBA controversy that has basketball fans across the United States debating one major question. How far is too far when it comes to physical defense? The controversy centers around Sophie Cunningham and DiJonai Carrington, following a hard foul that quickly became one of the most discussed moments online. But the story became even bigger after commentary attributed to Stephen Curry began circulating and fans started asking what he really thought about the situation. Was this simply an aggressive basketball play? Was it an example of normal WNBA physicality? Or did the incident cross a line that should concern the entire league? We're going to break down the controversy, the previous incidents that fans are bringing back into the conversation, and why this story could become much bigger than one foul. Before we get started, take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and let us know your opinion in the comments. Because by the end of this story, there is one question you are going to have to answer. Where exactly should the WNBA draw the line? Let's get into it. Imagine one of the most recognizable basketball players in the world watching a young WNBA player become the center of a controversy involving physical defense. Now imagine that player publicly addressing the situation. That is exactly why the commentary surrounding Stephen Curry has generated so much attention online. Curry knows what it means to be targeted. During his NBA career, he has faced some of the strongest defenders in basketball. He has been grabbed, pressured, trapped, bumped, and physically challenged throughout his career. But there is an important difference between physical basketball and a play that fans believe crosses the boundaries of sportsmanship. That difference is at the center of today's debate. The incident involving Sophie Cunningham and DiJonai Carrington became controversial almost immediately. Cunningham was involved in a physical sequence during the game, and Carrington's contact with her became the subject of intense discussion. The footage spread across social media. Fans watched it repeatedly. Some believed it was simply a hard basketball play. Others believed the contact was unnecessary. And once the video became viral, the conversation expanded far beyond the court. People began discussing previous incidents. They began discussing Caitlin Clark. They began discussing officiating. They began discussing the WNBA's approach to physical play. And eventually, the debate became about something much larger. The identity of the league itself. What kind of basketball does the WNBA want to represent? Physical basketball? Absolutely. Competitive basketball? Without question. But does physical competition mean anything goes? That is where opinions begin to divide. Let's take a closer look at the incident. According to the commentary circulating online, Cunningham was involved in a sequence where she was already dealing with contact around her face and eyes before Carrington made additional contact from behind. That timing became one of the biggest reasons fans reacted so strongly. The criticism wasn't simply about contact. It was about when the contact happened. When an athlete is prepared for a defensive challenge, that is one thing. When a player is vulnerable or unable to see the defender coming, some fans believe the situation becomes completely different. And that's why the phrase cheap shot began appearing repeatedly across social media. However, it is important to separate online opinion from established fact. A viral clip can show an important moment, but a short video does not always provide the entire context of a play. That is why the broader discussion matters. The WNBA has always had physical players. The league has always had intense rivalries. Players compete hard. They fight for rebounds. They fight through screens. They defend aggressively. They protect the paint. They battle for loose balls. That physicality is part of what makes basketball exciting. The problem begins when fans believe the physicality becomes unnecessary or dangerous. And this is where the controversy surrounding Cunningham and Carrington connects to a much larger conversation. Cunningham is not simply another player in the eyes of many fans. She has become part of the league's expanding audience and personality-driven culture. At 24 years old, she is already receiving enormous attention. Every game is watched. Every interaction is analyzed. Every controversial play can become a social media headline. That's the reality of modern professional sports. One moment can completely change the conversation. And that is exactly what happened here. But there is another name that made this story even more interesting. Stephen Curry. Curry understands pressure better than almost anyone. He entered the NBA as a young player with questions surrounding his ability to succeed at the highest level. Instead of allowing those questions to define him, he developed into one of the most influential players in basketball history. He became known for his shooting, his movement, his basketball intelligence, his ability to create offense, and his extraordinary ability to perform under pressure. But along the way, Curry also learned something every superstar eventually discovers. The better you become, the harder opponents try to stop you. Defenders don't give superstars easy opportunities. They study them. They pressure them. They force them into uncomfortable situations. They try to make every possession difficult. That's part of being a great player. Curry has experienced that reality throughout his career. And that's why his reported reaction to the WNBA controversy has attracted so much attention. The broader message being attributed to him is that there is a difference between playing hard and deliberately crossing the line. That distinction matters. A great defender should make a superstar work. A great defender should make every possession uncomfortable. But the goal should still be to win through basketball. Through positioning. Through preparation. Through intelligence. Through effort. And through skill. That is what championship-level competition is supposed to look like. This is also where the conversation surrounding Carrington became more complicated. Fans began bringing up previous moments involving her and other players. One of the most frequently discussed examples involved Caitlin Clark. According to the source material, Clark was involved in an incident in which Carrington's hand made contact with her eye while Carrington was attempting to defend a pass. The incident occurred in the first quarter. Clark briefly needed time to regain her composure. No foul was called on the play. That incident later became another viral topic when fans revisited the footage. Then, in the third quarter, another sequence involving Clark and Carrington drew attention. During that play, Clark made contact with Carrington's head and Carrington's contact lens was knocked out. Again, no foul was called. Carrington had to take time to replace the contact. Those two moments became part of the larger online argument. Supporters of Clark pointed to the eye incident. Others argued that both players were simply involved in normal competitive contact. And that is exactly why this debate is so complicated. Basketball happens extremely quickly. Players move at full speed. Hands are constantly fighting for position. Defenders are reaching for passes. Offensive players are protecting the ball. And officials have only seconds to make decisions. Not every collision is intentional. Not every physical play is dirty. And not every controversial moment proves that a player deliberately tried to hurt another athlete. But at the same time, fans have every right to question whether officials are applying the rules consistently. That is where the WNBA has a difficult responsibility. The league has to preserve physical competition while also protecting its players. It cannot turn the sport into a non-contact game. That would completely change basketball. But it also cannot allow physicality to become an excuse for reckless behavior. The standard has to be clear. And more importantly, standard has to be consistent. That's what fans want. They don't necessarily want their favorite players protected from competition. They want them protected from unnecessary danger. There is a huge difference. And this distinction becomes even more important when the player involved is one of the league's most recognizable names. The WNBA is currently experiencing an extraordinary amount of attention. New fans are discovering the league. Social media conversations are expanding. Arenas are receiving more attention. Television audiences are growing. And players who once received relatively limited national coverage are now becoming major sports personalities. Caitlin Clark has played a major role in that transformation. But she is not the only player bringing attention to the league. The WNBA has stars across multiple generations. Veterans bring experience. Young players bring energy. And the combination is creating a new era for women's basketball. That growth also means greater scrutiny. Every controversial foul becomes a national conversation. Every referee decision can become a debate. Every player reaction can become a headline. And every viral clip can reach millions of people. That is the environment Sophie Cunningham and DiJonai Carrington now find themselves in. A single moment is no longer just a moment. It can become a story. The story can become a debate. And the debate can become part of the league's public image. That is why the WNBA has to be careful. The league cannot control every opinion on social media. It cannot control what every fan says. It cannot stop every viral clip. But it can control how it responds. And that's where accountability becomes important. If a play is within the rules, explain it. If a play deserves a penalty, enforce it. If the officials make a mistake, review it. The goal should not be protecting one player. The goal should be protecting the integrity of the competition. That principle is bigger than Cunningham. It is bigger than Carrington. And it is bigger than Caitlin Clark. It applies to every player. Every team. Every game. Every season. And that is why the reaction attributed to Curry has become such an interesting part of this conversation. Curry comes from a basketball culture where physical defense was considered part of the challenge. But toughness was not supposed to eliminate sportsmanship. Competition was not supposed to eliminate respect. And winning was not supposed to require abandoning the rules. That's the message many fans believe is at the heart of this controversy. Great players should be challenged. They should be pushed. They should be tested. But they should also be allowed to compete in an environment where the rules are clear. Now, there is another side to this debate. Some fans believe the criticism has gone too far. They argue that professional basketball is supposed to be physical. They argue that players should be able to defend aggressively. They argue that social media sometimes turns ordinary basketball plays into massive controversies. And honestly, there is some logic to that argument. Basketball has always included physical contact. Every generation has had hard fouls. Every generation has had rivalries. Every generation has had players who played with an edge. That's part of the sport. But the opposing argument is just as important. If the league is growing rapidly, the standards must grow with it. Young fans are watching. Parents are watching. Sponsors are watching. New viewers are learning the sport. And they are forming their opinions about the WNBA based on what they see. The league therefore has an opportunity to show that physical basketball and sportsmanship can exist together. That may be the most important lesson from this entire controversy. Competition does not have to disappear. Intensity does not have to disappear. Rivalries do not have to disappear. The league simply needs to make sure that players understand where the boundaries are. And officials need to enforce those boundaries consistently. Now think about what this means for Sophie Cunningham. The source material describes her as facing an extraordinary amount of attention. Millions of people are watching WNBA games. Every performance receives analysis. Every mistake can become a headline. Every accomplishment can become a viral moment. That pressure can be enormous. But Cunningham has continued to focus on basketball. She continues competing. She continues playing. And she continues trying to establish herself in a league filled with elite athletes. That resilience is one reason supporters remain behind her. They believe that adversity is part of professional sports. They believe difficult moments can make an athlete stronger. And they believe the best response is ultimately performance. That's an important principle. Because controversy can disappear. A social media argument can disappear. A headline can disappear. But a player's career remains. And when the career is over, what people remember most is what happened on the court. That's why the most powerful response for any athlete is often simple. Keep working. Keep improving. Keep competing. And let the results speak. The same philosophy applies to Carrington. If the criticism is fair, the response should be learning and accountability. If the criticism is unfair, the best response can be proving it through continued performance. Either way, the focus eventually has to return to basketball. That's what fans came to watch. They want the games. They want the rivalries. They want the big shots. They want the dramatic finishes. They want the stars. They want competition. And they want the WNBA to continue growing. That growth is one of the most important developments in modern women's basketball. The league is no longer operating under the same level of attention it had years ago. Every major story now travels nationally. Sometimes internationally. A single clip can be viewed millions of times. A single quote can dominate an entire news cycle. And a single controversial foul can become the main story surrounding a game. That's why players, officials, coaches, and league executives all face a new level of responsibility. The spotlight is brighter. The audience is larger. And the consequences of mistakes are bigger. This brings us to the biggest question. Was the foul on Sophie Cunningham simply an example of aggressive WNBA basketball? Or did it cross a line? Was the criticism of Carrington justified? Or did social media turn a normal basketball play into something much larger? And what should the WNBA do when incidents like this happen? Should officials be more aggressive with penalties? Should the league review controversial plays more closely? Or should fans simply accept that physical contact is part of professional basketball? There is no universal answer. Basketball fans are going to disagree. And that's okay. Healthy debate is part of sports. The important thing is making sure that the debate remains focused on basketball rather than turning into personal attacks. That is especially important because the WNBA has become a major platform for young athletes. The next generation is watching. Young girls are watching their favorite players. Young boys are watching. Families are watching. And these players are becoming examples of what professional basketball can look like. The league therefore has an opportunity to teach something bigger than basketball. It can teach competition. It can teach resilience. It can teach discipline. It can teach accountability. And it can show young athletes that you can compete with intensity while still respecting your opponent. That's the kind of message that can strengthen the sport. Now, let's return to Stephen Curry. Whether every statement attributed to him online is accurate or not, the larger discussion surrounding his reported reaction has clearly struck a nerve. Why? Because Curry represents a player who has experienced enormous pressure. He knows what it feels like to become the target of opposing defenses. He knows what it feels like to have millions of people watching. And he knows what it means to compete at the highest level. That makes his name particularly powerful in a conversation about competitive integrity. But the final judgment should not come from a celebrity. It should come from the rules. It should come from the evidence. It should come from the officials. And it should come from the league's established standards. That's the healthiest way to approach the situation. Because if the WNBA wants to continue growing, consistency will matter more than any individual controversy. Fans need to know that the rules are the rules. Players need to know what is expected. Officials need to know what the league wants enforced. And the public needs to understand why disciplinary decisions are made. Transparency builds trust. Consistency builds credibility. And credibility is essential for a growing sports league. The WNBA has an opportunity right now to show exactly what kind of league it wants to become. One option is to allow controversy to dominate the conversation. The other is to use moments like this to establish clearer standards for competition. The second option could be much more valuable. Because the goal shouldn't be to eliminate physical basketball. The goal should be to make physical basketball fair. That's what fans want. They don't want a soft game. They want a great game. They want players who are willing to fight for every possession. They want defenders who make superstars earn their points. They want offensive players who refuse to back down. They want rivalries that feel real. But they also want to know that the players are safe. That is the balance professional basketball must maintain. And as the WNBA continues to grow, that balance will become even more important. Every season brings new stars. Every generation brings new rivalries. And every major controversy teaches the league something about where its boundaries need to be. For Sophie Cunningham, the best thing she can do is continue playing. For DiJonai Carrington, the focus will eventually return to her performance. For Caitlin Clark, the spotlight will continue to grow. And for the WNBA, the responsibility is to make sure that all of these players can compete under clear and consistent standards. That's what will ultimately strengthen the league. Not one viral clip. Not one headline. Not one social media argument. But the long-term quality of the competition. And that is why this story is much bigger than the original incident. It is about the future. The WNBA is entering a new era. The audience is growing. The stars are becoming bigger. The games are receiving more attention. And the expectations are rising. That means every decision matters. Every controversial play matters. Every disciplinary decision matters. And every response from the league matters. Fans are watching closely. Players are watching. Coaches are watching. Sponsors are watching. And the next generation of basketball players is watching too. So now I want to hear directly from you. Do you think DiJonai Carrington went too far? Do you believe the foul involving Sophie Cunningham should have received stronger punishment? Or do you think this is simply part of the physical nature of professional basketball? What about the incidents involving Caitlin Clark? Do you believe officials should have handled those moments differently? And what do you make of the commentary attributed to Stephen Curry? Do you think his broader message about competition, sportsmanship, and accountability is legitimate? Or do you think the entire situation has been exaggerated by social media? Let us know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear what basketball fans across the United States think. Because this is not just a debate between two fan bases. It is a conversation about where women's basketball is going. The WNBA is growing faster than ever. New fans are discovering the sport. Young athletes are becoming stars. And the league is receiving an incredible amount of attention. With that attention comes responsibility. The WNBA has to protect the excitement that makes basketball special while also protecting the players who make that excitement possible. Fans want intensity. They want rivalries. They want competitive games. They want stars to challenge each other. But they also want fairness. They want consistency. And they want respect. That's the standard that can help the league continue growing. The controversy surrounding Sophie Cunningham and DiJonai Carrington may eventually become just another chapter in WNBA history. Or it could become an important moment that forces a larger discussion about physical play and accountability. Only time will tell. But one thing is already clear. The conversation is not going away. Every new game could create another moment. Every new matchup could create another debate. And every major decision could influence how fans view the league. For Cunningham, the challenge is to keep moving forward. For Carrington, the challenge is to respond to criticism and continue competing. For Clark, the challenge is to handle the enormous spotlight that comes with being one of the most recognizable players in women's basketball. And for the WNBA, the challenge is making sure the sport continues growing without losing the standards that make professional basketball credible. That's the real story. Not simply one foul. Not simply one player. Not simply one viral clip. But the future of women's basketball. As this season continues, every game will matter more. Every Cunningham game will be watched closely. Every controversial play will be analyzed. Every referee decision will be debated. And every major moment could become the next headline. That is what happens when a sport reaches a new level of popularity. The attention becomes enormous. But so does the opportunity. The WNBA has a chance to build something extraordinary. A league where physical competition remains part of the identity. A league where stars can become global personalities. A league where young athletes can see a future for themselves. And a league where accountability and sportsmanship remain just as important as talent. That's the future many fans want. So regardless of which side of this controversy you support, there is one thing we can all agree on. The game itself should remain at the center. The players should compete. The fans should debate. The officials should enforce the rules. And the league should continue finding ways to make the competition better. Because that's what sports are supposed to do. Bring people together through competition. Create unforgettable moments. Give young athletes something to dream about. And produce stories that fans will remember for years. The story surrounding Sophie Cunningham, DiJonai Carrington, Caitlin Clark, and the commentary attributed to Stephen Curry is still developing. There may be more reactions. There may be more discussion. There may be more controversial moments. But until then, the best thing we can do is watch the games, look at the evidence, and keep the conversation focused on basketball. So tell me what you think. Was this simply tough defense? Did Carrington cross the line? Should the WNBA have responded differently? And do you believe stars like Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark deserve stronger protection from unnecessary physical play? Leave your answer in the comments. If you enjoyed this detailed WNBA breakdown, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss the next major WNBA update, Caitlin Clark story, player controversy, or basketball analysis. Share this video with another basketball fan who wants to understand what's really happening around the league. The season is still going. The biggest games are still ahead. The rivalries are getting stronger. The stars are getting bigger. And the next major story could happen at any moment. Stay informed. Stay engaged. And most importantly, keep watching the game you love. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.